A second. Welcome back to Guff Stuff Weekly. So you remember that time that this big company that makes a trading card game sent some product out to a guy? Oh yes, you've heard this intro before. And then they sent to Pinkertons to go retrieve it. I think that's a big mistake. How many other mistakes have other companies made? Let's talk about it. So, you remember that?
I remember that.
Watsy.
Yeah.
Yeah. We talked about that before.
Well, let's talk about the next big Watsy mistake.
Oh, let's do it.
Or it might have been the previous one, I don't remember.
What does Watsy do now?
The OpenGL fiasco.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yep.
Watsy's an infamous company.
Literally, they dug in really deep. And then they had to backpedal all of it.
So you think that was real?
I think so.
Or do you think they... No, you think that... Okay, yeah, I think it was real. I think all that was real. But do you think that Wizards put that out there just to see what would happen? And it ended up failing miserably?
No, I don't think they did it as a social experiment. I think they fully intended to try to monetize the OpenGL. And
I think so, too.
And then they realized... I think some decisions came from on high. And to be fair, I'm going to preface this whole episode by saying I think most of the bad decisions that are made in these scenarios, at least that I could think of,
right,
are from pressure coming from higher up in these companies.
I'd say more from the boards than the actual guys who run the company. More from the board of directors.
I feel like we've talked fairly extensively on the OpenGL or in this podcast before.
Yep.
So I want to talk about another one. You guys have phones, right?
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah, that's a Blizzard mistake there. That was one of their big mistakes. It's not their first big mistake, but I think that was probably their biggest in recent memory.
They seem to only make mistakes from that point on, so I mean...
That was a pretty big nail in the coffin of Blizzard.
That was a bad one. Like,
for those who don't know, just look up Diablo Immortal.
And then go look at the... what they were like? Was it?
Yeah, I think it was an E3 showcase
before they closed it.
Yeah, so it might have been BlizzCon.
Oh, it might have been BlizzCon. Yeah.
So what happened is Diablo was out for a long time, and it's pretty successful. But people are getting bored with the endgame content. They're not really releasing new stuff for it. And there's this huge secret project everybody knows in the works, and it's codenamed Diablo. So everyone's like, "Oh yeah, we're getting the next Diablo game." Well, lo and behold, the next Diablo game was Diablo Immortal, which is a mobile game, which rubbed a lot of people the wrong way.
Well, people came out to that event. They spent money and got plane tickets to go and see this. Got hotels to go and see this event come together, and they were all excited about Diablo and potential demoing of the new game and everything. Right. And for them to come out and say, it's not ready yet, but you're getting a mobile game as the big event, the big showcase.
Yeah, our big thing that we were working on was... The good thing that did come out of that catastrophe, though, was I'm pretty sure Diablo 4 was immediately greenlit and started working on.
Yes. I think so, too.
Yeah, and if they weren't working on it already, they added extra people to get that out.
Yes.
Well, you know what? To be fair, I think if they would have not... presented it the way they did, and then people were mad in the crowd booing them, and then the guy goes, then you have phone, right?
That's the response. The response became hostile, and you can't do that.
Especially when people are paying to go to your place.
It's going to make a bad situation worse.
It was terrible. That was a terrible mistake on their part.
Another one of my favorites of all time is the Dota International 2017.
Oh, I don't even know about this.
Biggest tournament of its time. Huge prize pool, massive fan turnout. Last year it's going to be in Seattle for a while. And Valve spoils a new game. Everybody's super excited, and they think it's going to be Dota 3. Or they think it's going to be Portal 3 or Half-Life 3. They think it's going to finally break the curse of Valve not releasing a third game.
Right.
Lo and behold, it's Artifact. The Dota 2 card game.
There you go.
And people were so excited during the trailer that they were like screaming and yelling and hooting and hollering. And then it said at the bottom, Dota 2 card game at the very end. Ooh. And the whole crowd went, oh. Like, you could hear everybody in the crowd audibly sigh.
I did not know that one. But that is, there are some epic mistakes that companies have a hard time recovering from.
Artifact was on the market for, I think, a year, and then it literally just got taken off of Steam.
There you go.
And they went all in on this. They hired Richard Garfield, the creator of Magic the Gathering, to design the game.
Richard Garfield, he did a lot of stuff. That guy was busy. Okay. He's been a busy guy. Yeah. That's... It's ridiculous that companies sometimes hire people. It's a lot like a government thing at times where they hire people to do something and then they just let them do whatever they want. And then they make the company look bad. It's like EA when they first released pay-to-win boxes.
Oh, yeah, that.
The loot boxes where they were actually pay-to-win boxes and not just cosmetics.
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly when that happened or even what game. I think it was maybe a Battlefield thing.
Well, the Battlefront 2 one was crazy because people were trying to do the math on how you could get all the stuff that you were supposed to get in the game.
There were characters locked behind it.
There were characters, and there was Darth Vader, and I don't remember the exact timeline, but it was
terrible.
It was years that you'd have to be playing that game daily to get Darth Vader as a hero character you could occasionally play in the game. But with loot boxes, you could pay a few $100s and have them tomorrow.
Yeah. That was a pretty big oops, and it took, I don't know if...
It was the biggest oops. The various governments across the world all got involved in trying to
gambling.
In Europe, it was huge.
It was a big
enormous deal. Yeah, they don't like gambling over there. They don't like any form of
the way
gambling.
Loot boxes work in European countries is you have to show the odds of what you're going to get.
Right.
You have to actually state what the 1 in whatever chances of what you're going to get.
Right. Mm-hmm. So if it's 1 in 6 chance I get blah blah blah, I have to be able to get it in that 6 times.
And some companies have actually taken that and implemented it in US based games too.
Right, which is fine. I mean, the pay to win option's kind of a garbage thing, unless you design your whole game around that, which a lot of
mobile games are designed that
way. Mobile games basically all do that for the most part. Most of them are. Maybe not pay to win. You can still win if you're not paying, but if you ever want to catch up to the guy at top, you've really got to. Yeah,
people of equal skill level and one person is paying, they're going to win almost every time.
Because they can just pre-buy all the stuff. And
another big blunder that was pretty fun was Battlefield 2042.
Ooh, yeah, that was a big one.
Remember that
Massive blunder. It really super buggy, couldn't run, very unoptimized. This goes kind
of
back
to... They didn't design the maps or the gameplay or anything even close to even resembling their previous games.
Yeah. It was a pretty big blunder.
Open, empty maps, which in a Battlefield game, having open, empty maps is just crazy because you usually have all sorts of buildings that are destructible and debris, and it's at the end of the map or at the end of the match that you end up playing is when you come across those scenarios in which it's a wasteland. There's nothing there because it's all been destroyed.
Right. Jeez.
Not right out the get-go. Here's a desert. Play in it.
Right. Interesting. I knew nothing about any of that. So.
And then I think all of their guns, from what I understood, either felt like you were playing a watered down Halo. You know how it just takes forever to kill somebody in Halo unless you're meleeing them to death. So it felt like that for all but a couple of the weapons, and then the weapons that were working well enough to feel okay and feel like you were able to actually get some kills in the game were very quickly, fixed so that they no longer did that.
Nerfed, yeah.
They got nerfed really, really bad, which nobody wanted that. Everybody wanted to run around and shoot each other and not sit there for 5 minutes.
I'm pretty sure Battlefield 2042 sits at a 39% ranking on Steam.
That's pretty low.
It's very low.
I think I'm going to go way back to probably one of the first, could be one of the first major flaws of any game of any time as long as video games go. I'm going back to probably, I'm trying to think, middle 1990s.
We're gonna talk about E.T.
No. Well, that was a fail too. I actually like that game though, so whatever. Don't judge me. Ultima Online. There was they did lots of in-game events. Richard Garrett He designed Ultima Online. If you've heard of the Might and Magic series, he is the guy who designed all that and started all that. Well, he also gave an MMO called Ultima Online. And he was having a huge in-game event. And there was, I mean, if you look on the old school screens, it was like RuneScape. There's thousands of people on the screen at one time. All it was just names. And because they didn't fix a bug they were supposed to fix, a guy hacked the system and killed the GM, being the king, which would be, he was performing the ceremony or starting the event as the king of Britannia. And it was a pretty big major flaw. Ruined the whole event.
Yikes.
I mean, it was hilarious as crap for everybody that was there because somebody hacked it and killed the unkillable. But what do you do after that? You've just ruined your whole event. There was no way to get back in because he was dead. And now, once he's dead, then he respawns. Well, everybody can kill him. It was a pretty big blunder. And I know most people, a younger crowd, ain't going to have any idea what happened there. But that was a huge, huge change in coding from there on out. Everybody wanted to make sure. I remember at the time EverQuest was huge. EverQuest is still pretty big. But them two games were the two big games right there. And they went back and they released patch after patch after patch, and it was all security patches. They're like, okay, we got to take security real now because our GMs that are supposed to be in games these days, they don't have GMs that just float around and ban people and talk to people and put them in jail. Back then, they used to do that.
That's kind of like mods.
Yeah, well, yeah, moderators. They would sit there and talk to you and stuff. And they would talk to you, hey, why were you doing this? Okay, well, then don't do it. I'm going to take away the stuff you looted, duplicated, whatever. They'd slap you on the hand and send you on your way or put you in jail. But that changed everything. Everything changed at that day. That was a pretty infamous day back in the old MMO world. Ultima Online suffered some... It wasn't really a suffer. It was just they knew there was a bug. They chose not to fix it because the game wasn't unplayable. It was just, if a moderator was on and the circumstances were right, you could kill the moderator.
Okay.
But it was a pretty major change for all of that at that point. Yeah. That was old. So people that are old will know. The rest of you guys are like, yeah, sure, okay, whatever. Or Blizzard when they let Activision buy them.
Yeah.
That was a pretty stupid mistake. Well, not buy them, but let Activision publish them. Probably one of the biggest mistakes Blizzard ever made. I think it was. I think because if you take a company that has 15 million plus subscribers, at $14.95 a month, right?
That's a lot of money. That's
a lot of money. And yeah, there's expenses to do that. But they're profitable every year, and they were just growing.
Yeah.
And you can look at the timeline, and when Activision bought them, they did this. Then they went down.
For those of you listening, he drew a plateau and then a drop off.
Yeah. But yeah, it goes up, plateaus, and then it just falls down. And Blizzard's been falling ever since, sadly. And then there's snafu with the whole... Well, you have a phone, don't you?
Yeah.
That's going to be infamous forever.
Another one of the biggest blunders in gaming history was the release of Magic the Gathering's Homelands.
That's a pretty big one, yeah. That was a pretty garbage
set.
That
literally put a lot of small-time store owners effectively out of business.
I can see why. I know I've bought a lot of Magic cards over the years, and if you buy a set that doesn't sell, then you're just sitting on them, and that's not good.
Yeah, and that set to this day has, I think, only one card that's worth over $1.
Yeah, I think that only became popular in the last couple of years.
Something like that.
It's ridiculous.
And it's more so popular because of how much of a blunder it was.
Yeah, probably.
And people want to see the cards because they want to know how awful they were.
Yep. What about... I know we're picking on video games and Magic, but what about Fantasy Flight?
Oh, yeah.
What about their unwilling desire to change their dice to just regular dice? Why does everything gotta have special dice for everything? And then they quit producing them, so you can't get them.
That becomes the biggest issue there. There's plenty of games out there that aren't Fantasy Flight that do similar stuff,
right,
where they have their own specialty dice. But you can always get their dice, and you can always get their games. Yeah. They don't just... we've made our money off of this. Discontinue all of it, and all of the fan base.
They literally quit making Fantasy Flight role-playing games.
They're terrible because they've had such... They had Warhammer. They've had Star Wars. They've had countless number of titles that they could make.
Yeah.
If they did it right, they could have made. I'm sure they made millions, but they could still be making millions if they had kept up with it.
I mean, I played their X-wing up until they did their second edition, which just changed everything, and I didn't care for it.
Yeah,
and that's
very sad.
Yeah,
I don't know why Fantasy Flight insists on having everything specialized to just them and proprietary. I mean, if you're a smaller company and you're willing to keep up with it and you're focused on a game, that's fine. But I think something with Fantasy Flight, and you have so many like licenses throughout different subjects and materials and different classifications, and you decide you're going to proprietary all of that. You know what? Frankly, it's just like when Wizards wants to put out a product every week. Nobody wants to buy it every week. They can't afford it. It's too much of a drain.
You can't even buy the Fantasy Flight ones on Drive-Thru-RPG anymore, I don't believe.
Probably not, because Fantasy Flight's made some horrible choices. Unfortunately, their products are beautiful.
Yes.
Their minis are gorgeous. Their games are fun initially. And maybe even second ed would be fun if that's how it started.
Yes.
But they changed it so much, it's like, oh, okay, we're just gonna... Oh, it's so frustrating. Like, I want to back these companies so bad. But on the other hand...
Their second edition issue for me became that they watered down all of the rule sets and all of the means in which you could design your little fleet loadouts.
Right.
And then they also cut about 90%, I want to say, of the ships that you would have had from first edition from the game until later on.
Of course. Of course they did. Why wouldn't they?
Yeah, they had so many role-playing games. Now there's only 2 that are published by them.
What are they publishing now?
Android and Tannhauser.
Okay, Android's been there with them for a long time.
Yeah.
That must be their own little person. I don't even know what Tannhauser is.
Apparently it's a...
Well, I can tell you from a game store owner standpoint, backing Fantasy Flight is not a good thing. Like, I want to, and it's good temporarily, but when your customers come in and you're like, hey, you gotta buy the upgrade package now to
continue
playing, or you gotta buy all new vehicles.
Most people are more likely to just turn away and say, no, I'm done.
Pretty much killed. I mean, you stopped, and then everybody else is like, well, if Matt stopped, why should we keep playing?
Yeah.
You know, because they don't want to go pay $50 for the upgrade box.
No.
There was no, like, buy the single upgrade pack for just the ships that people owned. One for each of the ships.
No,
or even
they had it for the factions, but every ship, but it didn't come with every ship that you had access to across all of the
it was a terrible decision. And I go back to their dice thing. Like, I think with their proprietary dice, they've ruined a lot of games. I know that some of the guys that come in here when they had Warhammer, they had specialized dice for that too, and they quit playing it because they just couldn't buy dice. You know, there's this Gamer Joe from Warroad used to come in here, and he's the guy who would buy the book and the dice for everybody at the table because he wants everybody to play and wants to encourage people. And we use Gamer Joe. I don't know if you're familiar with just a generic term.
Oh, okay.
So you know who we're talking about.
Yeah.
Guy that wears the fancy hat. And
yes.
Okay,
yes.
Yeah. But we just use Gamer Joe as a generic title. That we're not throwing anybody to us.
Here's a fun one.
Uh-oh.
That time that Nokia made a game system.
Nokia made a game system?
The N-Gage.
Oh, no, don't know about that.
You're the only one here who knows anything about that.
Yeah. So, it was designed to be a smartphone combined... Okay, it was a smartphone, quote-unquote.
Yep.
But it combined the features of a mobile phone and a handheld game system.
Which, if done right, would work. But, okay, it was probably a little early for its time, I'm guessing. I know Microsoft screwed up once. They made this player called the Zune player. You should
finish that story about Gamer Joe.
Oh, Gamer Joe. Yeah. He was going to buy all this sets of books and dice for everybody at the table. And he had like 6 to 8 players or something.
Wasn't that Starfield? Or was that different?
No, that's another one too. Yeah.
Okay, this is a different one you're talking about.
Yeah, we're talking about Warhammer. I think it was the Warhammer game.
Okay.
And he bought all the core books.
Yep.
But then he went to buy the dice, and they discontinued the dice.
Well, yeah, how the heck
he's like, I have like 1 set of dice. Yeah. How is everybody at the table going to play with 1 set of dice? Well, you can use 8-siders and But who wants to have a chart, a little translator chart for all your freaking numbers and stuff? Like bullcrap.
You don't want to. You don't want to have to do that. I mean, it's a nice feature to have in the game for people that are like, I have just basic dice, or the special dice aren't in stock.
Right.
But when they're discontinued entirely,
yeah, they just completely. I think that was just foreshadowing what they were going to do with the game.
Yes.
They're just like, oh, we're not going to produce any more dice, so we're going to kind of quit doing everything.
Yeah, we're going to quit supporting it. That's what you tell your customer base. And so when people come into the game and they go, wow, I really wish that I had known about this earlier, which is most role-playing games and tabletop games, honestly, they usually get more successful the longer they go.
Yes.
And for whatever reason, Fantasy Flight goes, oh, man, we made our money within the first year of the game being out. Let's stop producing stuff for it. Let's get rid of it.
Yeah. So yes, Gamer Joe, you were talking about another one, Starfinder.
Mm-hmm.
Gamer Joe there's two things Pathfinder has done, Piazza has done. Well, not two. There's many things Piazza has done wrong. But two things that have kind of come lately. One was Starfinder. They had a Kickstarter for it.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember Gamer Joe bought all these minis on Kickstarter.
Yes.
Right, and he spent a pile of money on these minis to get them. And if you bought them on Kickstarter, you were supposed to get them like 3 months before anybody else was going to get them, and and you could play the game with all the minis. And I don't know, even if still today he's actually received all the minis. Starfinder's been out for a couple years now. Yeah. I had the minis through retail in my store before he got them through his Kickstarter.
That's
Here's a fun one. Nintendo itself had one of the biggest blunders of all time. So
it's called the Wii U.
No,
it really was.
Before that.
Oh.
That was what was that? You go ahead.
Not the Virtual Boy.
Okay.
So back in the day, the NES, the Game Boy, and the SNES cartridges were around. Knowing that pesky CDs were on the horizon, Nintendo went to Sony to create a new CD-based console for them. Everything was going great until Nintendo decided, we weren't going to make a CD-based console after all and stick with cartridges. So what happened to Sony and that CD-based console? The PlayStation.
Oh, that was a little bit,
Nintendo could have owned the PlayStation.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Ouch. That was kind of an epic blunder. That was a good blunder. Yeah. Okay, so there you go. Do we want to talk about any more blunders?
I wanted to rapid fire some honorable mentions.
No. Okay.
Cyberpunk 2077.
Yeah. No Man's Sky.
No Man's Sky.
Yeah, that's another pretty popular one that kind of blundered itself out of. Well, we've talked about, I think, No Man's Sky, maybe even Cyberpunk at one point.
Fallout 76.
I knew you were going to say that next.
Although that's become a fairly decent game now.
Yeah, it has.
But again,
initially it was a blunder.
Yeah, they released it. Well, I think maybe didn't that come out right after the whole Diablo 4? Well, you got a phone, don't you?
I don't remember.
I think it came out a little while after that. I think.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It came out after that whole blunder, so I think they were trying to release a game.
Yeah.
Something that people would be like, oh, we don't hate them no more.
They're not the same company.
Oh, no, Bethesda. They're all the same company in my mind.
Yeah, there's just a couple rapid fire.
I'm getting old.
Rapid fire honorable mentions.
There you go. Alrighty, I think that should tidy it up. I think there's plenty of other ones we could talk about, but I think that
we've kind of made our point, I think.
Yeah. Anyway, until next time, I'm Scott.
Javen.
I'm Matt.